Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It is our 14th season debut, we believe. We are not 100% sure if we're accurate on that. We've been wanting to do the math and tried to look it up. It could be our 15th, but we're going with 14, and welcome into the show. Another season of Division III basketball ahead of us here from the NABC WBC studios. Of course, Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com. I am your host, Dave McHugh. I will be your host for the rest of the season, as always. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us here. We have a lot to talk about before the season even starts, and so we hope you will join us on social media and ask us questions. You can do so quite easily at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville on the Twitter accounts. You can go to Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We are monitoring that page as well. And you can certainly join us on Instagram, though I'll freely admit we don't watch that during the show. Instagram's at D3Hoopsville as well. We also have, well, you can email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Forgive the little bit of the windburn look on my face. Spent a couple of days out in the elements calling soccer games at McDaniel College. Congratulations to the Green Terror women's soccer program, who is moving on to the third round of the NCAA tournament next week. And then, of course, we've had football this weekend. D3 football has been busy with a selection show happening just a short time ago if you're watching us live. So it's been a busy Division III week, to say the least. Lots to cover, lots to figure out, lots to discuss, as it were. We've had an interesting coaching carousel in the offseason. No major rules to talk about like we were pretty busy with last year, as obviously we're now in the middle of the rules cycle. We won't get any new rules until next year for the most part. There's enforcements and hey, can you keep an eye on this type things, but nothing major at this time. Noticing our audio might be a little low, so bear with me here as I try and fix that for you so you can hear us a little bit better. If you have any questions, again, tweet us at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. I think the coaching carousel officially began, though some moves took place before we went off the air last year. But obviously with the big move of Paige Moyer at Roanoke resigning. He's not technically retired, but he has stepped away on his own from Roanoke. And we helped break the news that Clay Nunley of Randolph ended up taking that job. It was one of many coaching decisions in the offseason. There are so many, we can't hit them all to be sure. But a couple of them that certainly stood out to us. Principia's men's basketball coach retired at the end of February. Interesting enough, Principia's women's basketball team decided to scuttle the season this year. Not sure, there's a lot of reasons it could be in play there, but we did find that kind of an interesting 1-2, as it were. Of course, we in early March, we talked about John Ross leaving Calvin and what that would affect would be. But after we kind of got off the air and things kind of started to pick up a little bit, you saw a number of changes. For example, Roanoke, as we mentioned, grabbed Clay Nunley. We had a number of other coaches who switched jobs, became assistants, out as assistants. I think Kalamazoo was interesting to see Eric Dougal resign from the job. Utica welcomed in Sean Coffey as their new head coach after spending 5 years as an assistant at St. John Fisher. Ryan Kane officially had the interim tag removed from him at Keene State. Remember, he had a wonderful run through the NCAA tournament. We had, the big one was at Stockton, where we had heard over the summer that Jerry Matthews would be resigning or retiring right before this basketball season started. I think that got a little bit of an earlier push than expected, but Scott Bittner, the assistant, really associate head coach, was given the interim tag there. I can't imagine he doesn't keep on moving. Del Val lost Casey Steitzel to Division II Millersville, which opened up an interesting position. By the way, Chuck Winkleman, the former Millsaps head coach, went to Calvin to take over for John Ross. there's a lot of moves this year, and we'll talk to some of the new head coaches. We'll also talk to some who are stepping down. Another one that was a big surprise at Wittenberg, Bill Brown decided to step down. He won 543 games. Great interview on d3hoops.com under the notables section or in the coaches carousel that Gordon Mann did with Coach Brown. Worth the read, to be sure. You can go through the list on the coaching carousel and see move after move in the offseason. We will talk to some of those coaches. Pat Coleman went in maybe one of his last D3 Hoops jobs, or of course we all cross over. I even do some football work for him. Pat got an interview with the SUNY Canton men's basketball coach. We're going to air that on Thursday's show, as they will not have started the season as of yet, so we'll talk to them shortly. Or not shortly, we'll talk to him on Thursday and hear from his point of view from the great, very northern sections of New York State. Aurora's head coach, James Lancaster, stepped down this season. Todd McGinnis moved on to Case Western Reserve from Hartwick. That was another big move in the offseason. Hartwick then had an interesting coaching carousel themselves. Opened up the job, had 4 finalists. The first 2 said no. The second 2 pulled out. So they opened it up again. That one took probably a little bit longer than many, considering McGinnis left in mid-July. I don't think they had that job filled until early mid-September. That took longer than expected. Adrian's head coach, Mark White, departed, interestingly enough. From a high school. That one has had some questions behind it as to what really happened. Certainly don't want to speculate, but it caught many off guard, to say the least. Drew women's basketball has an interim from D1. John Olenowski picked up the interim job at Drew, which caught some people by surprise as well. We talked about Jerry Matthews. And then finally, Campbell, by the way, resigning from Western Connecticut this season as well. So lots of moves this season. Olivet named their head coach for women's basketball basically as practices were beginning. And we've had other coaches named. We had a coaching change. SUNY Maritime's coach switched jobs after practices had started. Maritime at least ended the cycle by naming an interim. So lots of moves in the offseason. We'll try and cover them over the next few shows with some of the interviews that we gather and some of the guests we'll talk to who may have switched positions or may be taking over jobs, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, we have a new top 25. We'll talk plenty about that. First time in a while, I think that the defending champs are not the number 1 teams the next year. I mean, both of them. It's certainly not uncommon, especially on the men's side. But I can't remember the last time it happened on the women's side, and someone might do the research and find out it happened 2 years ago. My brain just isn't there. But nonetheless, Tufts is your new number 1 on the women's side. Interesting enough, though, did not get the most number 1 votes. Thomas More had 10 and slotted in 4th. Tufts had 9 and came in 1st. I think when you look at that, it tells you that a number of people put Thomas More 1, and then a number of people didn't put Thomas More very high. As Thomas More ended up 36 points behind Tufts, considering a first-place vote is 25 points. Kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of where Thomas More being slated in on a few ballots. But Tufts, number 1. Amherst, number 2. Texas Tyler, number 3. Thomas More, 4. Scranton, number 5. Is your St. Thomas, Rochester, George Fox, WashU, Wartburg right out your top 10. On the men's side, quite a few teams got votes. Amherst was the number 1 team with 10 first-place votes. Then Christopher Newport and Babson had 6 each. CNU finished just 8 points behind Amherst. Babson was 45 points behind. So the battle for first was tight, and then there was a bit of a step-off, interestingly enough. But no one over 600, I should point out. St. Norbert was 4, then Tufts at 5 with no first-place votes. Then Benedictine slotted in at 6th with 2 first-place votes. That's kind of interesting considering what they lost, but they certainly bring back a good team. They are going to be in the conversation. Worcester was number 7, Ohio Wesleyan 8, Whitman 9, then St. Thomas 10th with 1 first-place vote. There are voters out there, and clearly one here, who always vote that, hey, until the defending champs knocked off, they're number 1. Except St. Thomas lost a lot, and we will learn out more about them, which allows me to transition into who our guests are tonight. We're going to be hearing from both committee chairs, both preseason number one teams and both defending champs all tonight. We're going to jam in a ton on the first night of the season. But Kevin Vande Streek from Calvin will join us. He is the men's basketball committee chair this season. Then we will hear from Bobbi Morgan, the women's basketball committee chair. She's the head coach at Haverford. You may remember her from last season. She filled in for Carrie Carollo both on the call when Carrie at Whitewater had to step away due to her team being at the table, and then joined us here on Hoopsville, though a little bit unprepared. We kind of contacted Bobbi at the last minute to get her on the show. Probably didn't result in the best of interviews or best of information, but nonetheless, she will join us on the show. We'll talk about, with both of them, we'll talk about the committees, what is maybe possible changes that have taken place. Also talk about their teams, but most importantly, back to the regional stuff. If you aren't aware already from the fall sports, the final regional rankings are now public, and so is the data. So those final regional rankings are no longer secret. We no longer have to glean information, though we may try and glean it early on a Sunday when we do our selection shows versus trying to wait for it on Monday. It takes a little bit of the suspense out of it. Granted, you won't see those final regional rankings until after the brackets are released anyway. So there's still a little bit of work to be done. But at least we now get to see the final data. We now get to see the final regional rankings. And as all of you who have watched this show know, that means we don't have to ask so many probing questions to find out what's going on, especially in women's basketball. So luckily, that stuff is now released. It has been being released in the fall. We have seen it. We're looking forward to it with basketball this season. So we'll talk to both of those committee chairs. Also ahead, John Tower from St. Thomas will join us, talk about his Tommies and the offseason and what they've lost. Dave Hixon will join us from number one Amherst as well. Is he surprised that they're the number one team considering many factors in play? Maybe he's not. But we'll see what his thoughts are. By the way, we'll also take a side trip with him to Rio de Janeiro. If you did not know, his son won a medal in Rio in the synchronized diving 3-meter event. We will talk to him about the experience. Saw him on camera a few times. He looked like a coach. He looked like Dave Hixon on the sideline, maybe more subdued than we're used to. Then we'll switch gears, talk to Jeff Hans from number 4 Thomas More. The post-Sidney Moore life for the Saints, they're still going to be good. How good? We'll talk to Jeff Hans about that. And then Carla Berube will join us from the number 1 Tufts Jumbos. Target's now on their back. Got all the way to the championship game last year. How do they repeat the feat and maybe go one step further to a national championship? We'll talk to Carla Berube about all of that. That's all on tonight's show. And then in the future, we will certainly be on the air Sundays and Thursdays starting at 7 o'clock throughout the season. A week from tonight, we will not be on air live, mainly because I'm going to be exhausted. Hoopsville Classic is next weekend. 8 great games with 8 awesome teams. Stevenson, Albright, Randolph-Macon, some of the close teams in the area that will be there. If you're a Randolph-Macon football fan, take advantage of this. Randolph-Macon football will be at Johns Hopkins on Saturday, while Randolph-Macon men's basketball will be at Stevenson for the Hoopsville Classic on Friday and Saturday. Make it a weekend in Baltimore, folks. Come out and support your teams. It should be a good one. We also have Stevens Point at the Hoopsville Classic this year. We also have Marietta, who is slotted this season at number 17. I think that might be a little bit low, but Marietta will be here as well. Skidmore, who's receiving votes, will be at the Hoopsville Classic as well. I may have forgotten one, and I apologize. You never know. So a week from tonight, what we'll substitute, which we started doing last year, is we interview all the coaches at the Hoopsville Classic. We will put those on a page so you can see them yourself. That will substitute us mainly because we will be working nonstop Friday and Saturday. And if it's all right with you, I'd like a break on Sunday. Then we'll have it off, obviously, on Thanksgiving as well, but then we'll be back on the air Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. We will then have a number of shows in December, including one later than we normally do it. This is going to be a little bit different. For Stag Bowl for D3 football is a solid week plus before Christmas. Actually, 9 days before Christmas this year. It's on the 16th. We will not do a show on the 15th, but we will get back and do a show on the 18th before then taking time off Thought about doing a show on the 22nd, but to be honest with you, it's probably not worth it, especially with the Christmas holiday. Then we'll be back on the air on the 5th, so we will go about 2.5 weeks there without a show. We may add the 22nd later, but just a quirk with the calendar this year is going to make things a little bit weird in the middle of December. Still planning a Hoopsville Marathon show end of January, beginning of February. We are still planning other events as well as we normally do. We'll be talking about the fundraising efforts with this show down the road as well, et cetera, et cetera. It's the usual, and we will try and improve it every step of the way. You may notice a few new things in the studio. Got a new jersey over my right shoulder. That's not going to be its permanent home. We will find a permanent home for the Brockport jersey. Greenville also gave us a jersey. We hinted at this last year. That may not be its permanent home either. We'll eventually find a permanent home. It may stay there. We're not sure. It looks good there. And we've been told by other schools that more stuff is coming. So this studio may be dressed up. We still haven't moved the Hoopsville sign from behind my head. It will move up probably a little bit in the coming weeks. Still tweaks to be done in the studio. So lots to talk about in Division III. I cannot believe, as Matt Snyder says, it's D3 season already. It does feel a little weird. But the soothing voice of coming out of your speakers, Matt, I am glad you're tuned in. I'm glad you considered a soothing voice. But we have lots to talk about, a lot to cram into the show, so we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll get things started. But before we do, I want to once again thank the WBCA and the NABC. WBCA, thank you very much for the paraphernalia. We got a nice coffee mug that we will be using. My voice is a little shot, so I've got some nice tea in there. Also have a cup back here from the WBCA. Got a shirt from them. We'll be wearing that. NABC plans to send some stuff to us as well. We look forward to that. Again, they're the partners for us this season. We're looking forward to it. They are the WBCA NABC studio partners, and of course, always thanks to D3Hoops.com. So we will take a break. When we come back, we will talk to the aforementioned Kevin Vande Streek from Calvin College. We'll also talk to him about the World Series because he and I have something to share there. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Back with more right after this.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. A little bit of a delay, having a little trouble getting Coach Vande Streek on, so we're going to take another break. We'll be back with more Hoopsville right after this. Sorry for the delay. It's the first show. We're still getting the gremlins out. We'll be back with more right after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. and now everyone else is speechless.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Sorry for the delay on that. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Lots of ways of getting in touch with us. We hope you'll take advantage of those. It certainly is an interesting time of year as we're not even being able to talk about teams who've started to play, but we're certainly going to do our best to keep things, at least get you ready for the season, give you an idea what's going on. And part of that tradition here on Hoopsville is to talk to the committee chairs to get an idea of where they're coming from and what they hope to do with the season ahead. And so joining us to start things off on the Hoopsville hotline is Coach Kevin Vande Streek of Calvin College. Coach, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time. Of course, everyone's looking at a still shot of me. I'm kind of giving away the fact that one of my shots later in the day is going to be pre-taped, but details. First and foremost, congratulations on the job. I know that that it was something that may have been preordained, whether you wanted it or not. But I do want to kind of touch on the fact that nobody maybe really truly appreciates just how busy you are. You're not just a coach at Calvin; you're also a teacher, and it keeps it a little bit interesting for you, does it not?
Yeah, we have an interesting structure at Calvin, and maybe there are some other places out there like it, but I don't know of too many where we really don't have an athletic department. It is housed within the kinesiology department, and our athletic directors actually answer to the department chair. And so I was hired as a tenure track professor. I have 30 hours of doctoral work and, teach some classes and that kind of thing. And so it's fun. I enjoy my job, but there's some times when it's fairly busy, yes.
I don't want to go into the details a little bit, but the school's helping you out a little bit to make sure you can do, because you and I talked, you were a little concerned about how this was going to really work out with the time you had available. And I don't want to go into all the details because some of it's probably inside baseball, but the school's helping you out a little bit to let you dedicate more time to this.
Yeah, we have some activity classes that are 7-week courses, and so our department chair was kind enough to slide some of my responsibilities to the last 7 weeks of the year, which would give me a little more time in February and March, which is probably the busiest time for the committee.
I'm talking to Kevin Vande Streek. Of course, we'll be taking over the Knights here shortly, and we'll talk about how the Knights may be lining up this season. But more importantly, let's talk about the committee. And you're now in your 4th year on the committee. And I know from talking to you, you're looking forward to the season. You don't see any major challenges ahead of you guys, but at the same time, I got the sense that you still have some important things to tackle this season.
Well, for the committee you're talking about? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a big job in a way, in that there's a lot of responsibility. We're trying to do our best and look out for all of Division III basketball. We have a few changes in number of teams that we're ranking, in some new committee members, in adding 64 teams, which is nice. We have the next bid cycle that's up, so we'd be looking at that at some point of where we might be hosting the Final Four, and so there's some things that will need to be looked at and decided.
You're taking over for Brian Van Haften. I think it's something about the Vande in this deal. I don't know if there's anybody who's maybe needing a name change next year when you step off the committee, but I'm just saying. But you did take over for Brian. Of course, prior to Brian, we had Steve Ulrich. Oh, no, we had Jeff Burns. If he's listening, he's going to be angry at me. And then Steve Ulrich prior to that, and others like Dave Martin. And there's been a 1-year rotation. It's worked pretty well for men's basketball. And you guys do a really good job of trying to keep with the status quo, as it were, and improve upon that. So what do you have as a mission, as it were, moving forward with this committee?
Well, I sure have learned a lot from those guys, and Mike DeWitt was the chair before I came on, who, of course, is the coach at Ohio Wesleyan, and I had some conversations with him prior to accepting the position, and there's some really good people, and the people on the committee are outstanding, and, of course, Elisa Halpin from the NCAA is phenomenal, and so, I want to keep things rolling a little bit, and in that we've tried to make it as much of a national tournament as we can within the parameters of travel and so forth. We've tried to, I don't know if seed is exactly right, but we tried to separate the better teams and then do have the game assignments. Perhaps the best team in the region versus, a lower ranked team in the region type of thing. And I think it's gone really well the last couple of years, and I want to keep that momentum going.
One thing you kind of hinted at, we're going to jump around a little bit here as my memory works. One of the things you talked about earlier, and is certainly going to come up, is the bid cycle is now up. Salem has the championships for this year and then this season and next season, but after that they are open. And a little bit of inside politics on this, but we knew that you were supposed to kind of help make a decision by now, as the NCAA has gotten into this new routine of it. But the move with North Carolina, for example, in Division III men's and women's soccer got pulled out and is going to Salem, Virginia in December. But that has put everything on hold for you guys. And I don't want to go into all the details as to why, but the NCAA is basically going behind the scenes and making sure all state laws are within the realm of what the NCAA wants to endorse, essentially. But is that a frustration for you guys? Are you worried you're now going to have to make a decision on something while you'd rather be focusing on regional rankings, for example?
Well, I hope it's not during the exact same time. Yeah. I'm hopeful that we can get to it soon, but right now we're just kind of in a holding pattern as the NCAA looks into state legislation and those kind of things. And I certainly think that's a worthy cause, and I'm supportive of that. And but we'll try to make that decision when the time comes. But I hope it's sooner rather than later.
We've gone to Salem for 20 years, handed out 19 trophies because of the 1 year going to Atlanta. Every time I think the bid cycle comes up, Salem always gets nervous. I love them to death, but they are always worried that someone may take the bid from them. They love it so much. That being said, is there any talk or speculation, okay, we've been there 20 years, maybe we find another place? Or is Salem so ingrained now in this championship, it's going to take an incredible bid, an opportunity like Atlanta, to supersede Salem?
Well, that's a good question. We've not talked too much at this point as a committee, other than that it's open. And, the last time when I was on the committee that we looked through it, we looked at it as simply a brand new opportunity and what are the strengths and weaknesses of each place. And I've had the great fortune of being able to be at Salem not only as a committee member, but twice as a basketball coach. And certainly the people are phenomenal there. And that's a huge selling point that we know what we're going to get from there. But I think it's kind of like, a once ranked, always ranked, which we don't have that anymore, So we're looking every year or every time the bid cycle comes up as a new opportunity, and we'll try to look through all the, the advantages or possible disadvantages of each possible host site and try to make the best decision that we think is there for men's basketball.
Let's switch gears a little bit. A couple new things this year. Obviously, we talked about at the beginning of the show. The rankings will now be released at the end of the season, something men's basketball has been subtly doing anyway in some shape, form, or whatever. Sometimes the committee knows it, and sometimes they don't. I know you guys have been a huge proponent of that and pushing it forward. Your reactions to it finally going through?
Yeah, outstanding. Both as a coach and as a committee member is something that we have, as a committee, have pushed every year that I have been on the committee. I don't think we're trying to hide anything. We want people to know that we are trying to be as transparent as possible, and we've gone through the process to the nth degree and the best of our ability to try to select the teams that are most deserving and try to do the best job that we can with the brackets. And we're certainly human, so we're going to mess up. And, I always say I stand in the front of the mess up line. So I think, some of those things might happen, but it certainly isn't going to be from a lack of caring or a lack of attention to detail or a lack of discussion, and we'll go from there.
Something interesting that you told me about, and I realized women had done this a few years ago, and what people may not realize is when you rank the regions, you're allowed to rank a certain percentage of the region, and that's not a fixed number. It's a not a wide-ranging number. It's a range of numbers. You're allowed to rank between 15 and 21%. What you told me the other day as we got ready for this interview was you guys took advantage of that, and you didn't stick to one percentage for the regions. You decided to try and make it a little bit more balanced. Can you kind of give everybody an idea of what you guys are up to with these regional rankings?
Sure. So in the past, we did have a fixed, and I honestly don't know what that percentage was, but we took a percentage and we brought it across the board to every region. The issue with that, I think, was that in one region we ranked 13 and another we ranked only 6. And when you're doing regional rankings, that's totally fine. It doesn't really matter. But when you get to that last call and you're selecting the at-large bids, using winning percentage or record versus ranked opponents is really a difficult comparison to make, say, from the northeast to the south, where one team may have played 10 and the other only 2. And so would it be an advantage or a disadvantage for either of those, right? Someone could be 5-5 against ranked opponents, and you say, boy, they're only 5-0, and the team from the South's 2-0. They've won every game. And so I don't know that we're going to look at it in any more higher of a priority than we have in the past. But when it comes down to those last 3-4 teams of who's going to get in, any possible information that we could have that's been demonstrated on the court is going to be valuable. And so maybe this is just one piece that might help us.
So the Northeast will get cut back. Some regions like the East and the Atlantic, Mid-Atlantic may gain a couple. Some regions may not change at all. And the idea is, as you said, is just to try and balance it a little bit more. Is that a fair balance, considering some regions like the East and the Atlantic or Mid-Atlantic are a little bit smaller than other regions?
Well, that's the question, certainly, and that's the discussion I think that we had. But I think after talking about it, we felt this was a way to go, and we're going to give it a shot. And if we, get to a point and say, boy, this really worked contrary to what we were hoping for, we certainly have the power and the way to change it back.
And I also know you and I talked about the fact you're trying to make sure the math lines up. And we talk about the weighted measure. And I know we don't need that answer now. We really only need it when we start looking at things in January. You've asked stats to look at this. What are you trying to determine?
Well, we are, trying to figure out a multiplier, if that's what you're talking about, correct?
Obviously, in men's basketball, we use a multiplier. So what are you trying to figure out with the math?
Well, we want to try to balance out the home and away and encourage teams to have a balanced schedule and not play all their non-conference at home to build up wins type of a thing, or the contrary, to go only on the road. So we have a multiplier that tries to figure in home and away. However, I think it was 2 years ago, the Division III basketball, Division III in general, in all sports, I believe, went from a percentage of win-loss to the raw data of win-loss. And what that did, we found out now, is that basically neutralized the multiplier. And so the NCAA is looking into what might be done to actually grant us the value of a multiplier when considering home and away.
This is a little bit inside baseball. Matt Snyder certainly is at the forefront of a lot of this. And let me correct one thing, by the way. They went from the data to the averages. They went from the raw data numbers, putting the multiplier on each individual team, to figuring out what your home record was, your away record, and your opponents in that, and then putting the multiplier there. And then we have thought that maybe that has ruined the multiplier in some cases. I just wanted to clarify that. Matt Snyder can certainly draw more on that. We may have Matt on at a future date to explain it. But obviously we don't need an answer until January, really. And so I don't want to stick on the topic too much, but it is something we're going to keep an eye on the rest of the way. I don't want to lose more time. You and I could talk plenty about the committee. I'm sure there's lots of people who have questions, but honestly, we'll talk more in January when we have you back on as well. But I want to talk about your team. I look at your schedule, and you have one of the more interesting beginnings of a season. You will play Finlandia on the 18th. Then you will play Augustana on the 19th. Then you will play two out of Division III teams that you normally play, Cornerstone and Aquinas, before getting back into the mix with Carthage and Oshkosh. That's a mixed bag, if I do so say so myself. Now, you may be catching Augustana at the perfect season, but wow, that's just a hodgepodge.
Well, no offense to Gray, but I'm not sure I'm really looking forward to playing them.
Who knows?
But, I tell you what, Dave, we're in a tough spot, and I know, a lot of places are possibly with different scenarios, but being landlocked in Michigan, where we can't go east or west because of the lake, or north to Canada, and we are the only Division III conference in the state. So it's really difficult for many of us in our conference to find Division III opponents. Scheduling is way, way more difficult than a lot of people would think. You can't just call somebody and say, well, hey, let's play, because maybe that someone doesn't want to play, or maybe they're not, they can't play based on other agreements. Maybe they do want to play, and you don't have the date that works out, and we've said for years to go to Ohio or Indiana. Those are all great, but sometimes those people don't want to play a non-conference game 3.5 hours away. They can find someone, much closer. And so it's difficult, and I like our schedule. I think it is a hodgepodge, but we play some very good opponents, and we're excited about getting started.
And looking at your team, you've got 4 seniors on the squad, Cam Denny, Nate Drews, Michael Welch, and Nick Cronemeyer, but also a lot of youth. What should fans of the Knights expect from this squad? What should fans of Division III who know Calvin so well kind of expect from this team?
Well, I guess you always need to frame a little bit. Last year was a really tough year for us. I'm guessing it was the worst win-loss percentage in Calvin history, which, it's not one of those things you want your name attached to, really. Yeah. It's just But, the 3 years prior, I think we were 72-16 and, had a little more what I and everyone else expects from Calvin College. But we had some things happen last year, some, thing that happens in Division III and in other places as well, as guys decide to be involved in other things and not play. And that was a real blow to us when we had planned on some of those things and built our team around some of those things, and then a couple of key injuries. So anyway, I think we have a nice recruiting class. We have a transfer that has started our 2 exhibition games, and we're going to be young and a little inexperienced from a role standpoint, not necessarily from a returning player standpoint, but I'm excited. We have great guys. They've worked really hard. They have already formed a very good team chemistry, and I think that will help us have some success.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'd love to talk to you more, but we've got a jam-packed show, so we got to get going. But one last thing before I do let you go. You and I share one major thing in common. We are both diehard Cubs fans. And I got to know how you reacted to Game 7. I'd love to ask you how you reacted to every game, but we don't have that kind of time. But your reaction when they finally clinched it.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was, just an amazing season, and you're trying to tell yourself, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Yeah. But you're just a nervous wreck, right?
Yep.
And my son and his wife are in the process of moving here from Georgia, and they're staying at our house.
Oh, boy.
And it's late at night in Game 7, right? And my son's downstairs on the couch, and I'm upstairs. And the game's over, and I'm sprinting down the basement to high five and talk. So it was pretty exciting.
Any tears?
Any tears? No.
Oh, okay.
No tears. But just a lot of excitement.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty cool moment, and I'll have to admit I'm still in a little bit of awe to this day. But hey, well, thanks for joining me. We'll talk plenty more about the Cubs another time. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Oh, no, we're just, excited to have another year of Division III basketball. What a blessing it is to be a part of it, and I wish everyone the best.
Very good, sir. Well said. I know we'll talk plenty more down the road, but thanks so much for joining me on the season debut tonight.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Absolutely. Kevin Vande Streek, chair of the Division III Men's Basketball Committee for this season, head coach of the Calvin College Knights. Look forward to seeing what they do in the MIAA. Look forward to doing outside the conference. They start the schedule on the 18th against Finlandia, and then they'll take on Augustana on the 19th. That's a little quirk with the 15th being in the middle of the week. Some people will start in the middle of the week, some will not. And they are one of those. We will talk plenty more with him down the road as well. Got to get going. When we come back, we're going to talk to the head coach of the Haverford women's basketball team and the women's basketball committee chair. Bobbi Morgan will join us. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to the season debut of Hoopsville. Hope you're enjoying the first show of the season. Remember, we're on the air now Sundays and Thursdays throughout the basketball season, except for a few times around the holidays. 7 p.m. is our start time, and we hope you'll enjoy it. Don't forget, you can email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Join us on Twitter at d3hoopsville using the hashtag Hoopsville, and don't forget hashtag D3H. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're even on Instagram at D3Hoopsville there as well. I'm sure there's other social media platforms our future will be embracing, but nonetheless, welcome to the show. I hope you're enjoying it. Again, this segment's going to be a little bit different. We're pre-taping it. The studio wasn't quite ready for me to do this on camera, so forgive the still pictures. You already see, if you're watching the show, who our next guest is. We're going to go to the Hoopsville hotline here momentarily. Just got done talking to the men's committee chair, Kevin Vande Streek from Calvin. So keeping with that theme, let's go to the Hoopsville hotline, and joining us there is the women's basketball committee chair, Bobbi Morgan from Haverford College. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate you taking the time. First and foremost, congratulations on the chairmanship. I would assume congratulations. How many years have you been on the committee now?
This will be my third.
It is your third. So there's a potential you could be doing this for a couple of years.
I could. We'll see how it goes.
I had a feeling that would be the answer. Obviously, Carrie Carrillo served last year, Dave Martin the year before that. There's turnover every year isn't something the women's committee's had a lot of, but it has in the last few years. Is it something you guys are adjusting to? I mean, there was one year there was, I don't think before your time, we had a person on for 3 years in a row. Is this something you guys want to try and keep up? I kind of sense that just doing it once isn't a bad thing necessarily.
Well, it's a lot of time, and so when I accepted the chair, I actually said, I'll do it this year. I have, as I mentioned to you earlier, I have three kids. I have a pretty full plate, but I mean, I am more than happy to help. And the chair, it means more calls, a little bit more time, but ultimately anybody on our committee, I mean, the amount of work they put in, it's a lot, and it's a really fun, committed group. So I'm sure, it kind of depends as committee members come on and then they leave. If somebody, I don't know that somebody would take it on for 3 years, but I think a 2-year max sounds like a pretty good way to do it.
If it works, it's not a bad thing necessarily. Right. Obviously, you have to balance basketball coaching on top of that. We'll talk about your team in a bit. But what are you most looking forward to in the season ahead?
So in terms of
the committee.
The committee, I think, we've got some new members that we're excited to have join us, and some really great people returning. And I think I've said this to you before. My past 2 years on the committee has been a fantastic experience because the people are really, really committed to trying to get the best teams in the tournament. We don't seem to have anybody that just lobbies for teams that really shouldn't be in the tournament. I mean, it's a very committed group, so I'm looking forward to working. I mean, we've got Karen Harvey and we have Jim Scheibel and Kelly Thompson and Leslie Irvine returning, and then some new members, Chris Huffman from DePaul, Stephanie Dunn from Berry, and Dave Petroff, who's actually an SID, Edgewood, joining the committee. So I'm looking forward to meeting some new people and working with the people that are back.
Got a good group there, a bit of a motley crew, I would say, knowing some of those people on board, but certainly a solid group. You all had the opportunity last year to go to the championship weekend. Not that you don't normally do that as coaches anyway, but to be there as committee members to watch the Division III game be played in Indianapolis on the site of the Division I. Are you still a little bit on a high from all of that?
I think everybody who participated in that experience is, and I think it kind of goes down, particularly for the two teams, Tufts and Thomas More, and those coaches and players, administrators, those people, those kids, they had an awesome experience, but it was really just, I think, a culmination of a lot of years where Division III was kind of, very much in the background, and I think the game itself was such a highlight. It was probably, I thought, the best game of the 3 championships last year. And, it really, I think it opened up a lot of eyes to how strong Division III women's basketball is. As far as the committee goes, it was actually a little less work because, there were layers upon layers of help from the NCAA and people in Indy, but it also was more time because we had to go, we had 2 weekends. We had to go to Capitol and then come back for, almost 4 or 5 days in Indy. But it was a fantastic experience. I mean, the committee obviously would love to see it happen again, and the WBCA has supported that, but it's a matter of dollars and logistics. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, everyone would love to have that kind of logistical support behind the scenes at Division III events, as well as they were organized in a lot of places. The D1 experience, I've been to Atlanta and now Indy, it certainly trumps them all, and for obviously good reasons. And when you're at the home of the NCAA too, it kind of goes with it. You talk a little bit there. I don't want to dwell on it too much. You need to talk about the fact the men came out of Atlanta and said, "Love to do this again." I knew the women would come out of Indianapolis saying, "Want to do this again." You touched on it. There's logistics to it. There's finances to it. But is that a really strong wish to do it, or is it one of, hey, if we can do it again, we'd like to?
Well, I mean, I think from the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, it's unequivocally the strong want to do it again. From the WBCA Board of Directors came out and endorsed it. Obviously, the committee members that participated, and I'm sure those that were there as coaches, want to continue it. And we certainly understand. I mean, it costs a lot of money for the NCAA to put on that kind of an event. So, it's not something that could ever happen every year. Certainly, we would love for them to continue looking at, maybe they could do this again, and maybe we can have some kind of a model that would enable both the men and the women to do this, whether it's every couple years or on certain highlight anniversary years. That's something that we're in support of. And then individually, I'm certainly in support of, because I just think that it's a marquee event and it really showcased the level of basketball in Division III and just gave those kids a great experience.
Yeah. Of course, with it last year, you didn't have a consolation game just by the nature of how the tournament was set up. There was no reason to. But moving forward, you guys have voted to eliminate the consolation game. That's going to bring up the question everyone's going to have. Does this mean an all-star game? Let's start with the fact, though, that you did get away with get rid of the consolation game. What was the motivation there?
It wasn't an easy decision, honestly, because there were mixed feelings about that, across the coaches group, and I'm talking about Division III coaches just in general. But the last few years, there was kind of an overriding sense that more and more coaches just felt that it's kind of run its course, and the reason for having it was what enabled those teams to stay and kind of be part of a championship experience.
Yeah.
And kind of create a little bit more of an atmosphere, on that championship day with 2 games. But the reality of it is, I mean, it's a tough game to play. Yeah. And as much as that depends on how the coach and the teams approach that opportunity, it just kind of made sense that, other sports weren't doing it. It seemed a little outdated in that sense. And we were, again, spurred by the possibility of having, what can we do instead? And 2 years ago, Dave Martin, who was the chair, who had been a member of the men's committee, kind of brought forth the idea, like, hey, if we're going to get rid of this game, why don't we, start looking into the possibility of having an all-star game? And, it was fantastic. He put the model together that the men do, and, we had begun those discussions, and we did begin those discussions with the WBCA as well. But as for now, they're still very much in the discussion stage.
It'd be, we'd certainly love to see it come about. I think the men's side is certainly spectacular and has made that weekend even better, and even more people will come to it because obviously individual players will be there as well, and it gives those individual players a chance. But at the same time, we understand it is not an easy logistical thing to put together. We certainly look forward to seeing where that goes. Transitioning into the year ahead, any major changes with the committee? Any major change outside of people coming on? Any major changes to how you guys plan to approach the year? We'll talk about final rankings in a moment, but just in general, is there a change in the way you'll do it, or is this the status quo?
Well, I mean, we're going to be following the criteria that the NCAA gives. And so, there'll be no major shift because there's been no major shift from the NCAA. So, we do have, access to look at kind of an RPI ranking now that is basically the same data, just kind of presented in a color, kind of a different way. So that's not a primary criteria. It does give us a different way of looking at the data, and it can be very helpful in kind of breaking it down. But in terms of how the selections are done, it'll still be primary criteria, secondary criteria, so things won't change.
When you guys, I know this is the $1 million question. We'll talk about it a lot. When it comes down to knowing the difference, and I know all the criteria is basically equal, but knowing the difference between SOS, win-loss percentage, I know that's a difficult thing for the committee to tackle because every single case is different. Have you guys found anything that you feel works in trying to differentiate, or is it still kind of a feel case-by-case scenario?
You know, I think one of the greatest exercises that they do at the NCAA is with all the chairs for all the sports chairs, and then we actually go through all of that. And I think that there are so many different scenarios, so that to try to maintain a consistent thing and say we're going to do this no matter what, I don't think that's going to pick the best field. So I think that it takes a lot more work to really peel it down to each case and look at, and we peel it. We peel each one back, and that's why, you know, those last few selections can take so long sometimes. But, you know, there's not a magic formula. I wish there was. We're going to continue to do what we've done in the past, which is obviously looking at that primary criteria and just weighing it all, you know.
I know we just talked to Kevin Vande Streek, and I know one of the things we talked about was that the regions are making a slight adjustment in the sense of how many teams are being ranked. And you and I talking prior to this kind of reminded me that the women kind of made that a change a few years ago. Are there any tweaks to the number of people being or teams being ranked this year, or are you staying with the status quo from last year?
I gave it to you. I have it. I mean, I don't have it.
It's all right. I mean, it's
no, it's the rankings are staying the same. We haven't made any major changes. Number of teams being ranked.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we covered that since the men are making a change. People are like, well, what about the women? So we've got to make sure to know that. Anything that you took from last year's experience of selecting teams, especially considering you kind of became an ad hoc chair when Carrie had to come off the call for so long. Anything you took from that experience that moving forward to this year you want to either focus on, keep from being a distraction, or just understand, not a better way to do it, that's a horrible way of saying it, but there's a different way to maybe do something that you learned from last year that you hope to improve this year?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, the challenge last year was that, like, as we mentioned, that we did have quite a couple of committee members that actually involved. So, you know, I don't want to wish them ill will, but, you know, it's nice we had everybody on the call all the time, but that probably won't happen given the caliber of teams that are likely going to coaches that are here. No, I mean, I feel like, you know, I've learned the process from the people before me, and I feel that it's been working, you know, and I don't see anything that we'd love to have it go a little more quickly, because we've had some pretty lengthy calls in my last couple of years that I've been on the committee. But again, I think that a lot of that is just due to the diligence of the people and the amount of, you know, how carefully the selection process goes. So, you know, other than speeding it up somehow, and I might tap into talk to some of the guys committee because they seem to get it done a little earlier. So I might tap into some of their process.
I think they're starting earlier too. I think they start mid-afternoon, even though their game's taking place. But yeah, check with them and see what they're doing, because they definitely did things differently a little bit last year and seemed to be done well before you guys. Another thing that's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm going on a little bit off the top of my head, which I really shouldn't do, but I believe we're going back to Calvin this year for the championship weekend, and then we go to Rochester, Minnesota the year after that. Am I correct?
Yep.
And then as a result, though, this year is a year that you guys will actually have the responsibility of picking, I believe it's the next 2, if not 4 years of the championships. And I know we're in a little bit of delay. Talk to Kevin about this as well. We are a little bit delayed here, but are you looking forward to that process?
We are. You know, back in April, we talked about, you know, hopefully we're going to get some really good bids in. But as of, you know, with all the things that happened with the NCAA, we were supposed to start looking at them in the fall, earlier in the fall. But when there was the problems in North Carolina and all the other championships that were supposed to take place there, that was put on hold. So we'll be looking at them. Haven't gotten a date yet of when we're actually going to be meeting to to try to look at those bids. But yeah, that's an exciting process because again, you're trying to find a great venue and a great place to host a championship. So really, it should be a fun process.
Has there been any talk of finding a more, I don't want to say permanent, but a more stable home for the women's championships? As long as I've known it, it's been rotating, and it's probably rotated forever. The men found a home in Salem 20 years ago and have stayed put. Who knows the future, but they've at least stayed there for 20 years. Has there been talk on the women's side of going, you know, it'd be nice to have a little bit more of a permanent home or a goal in mind, like a road to Salem for our side as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've had those discussions at our April meeting the last 2 years, and and both the pros and the cons of that in terms of depending on where our teams are coming from for the Final Four, in terms of costs. Certainly they've done a fantastic job in Salem by all accounts, and it has kind of become, like it's a tradition. Like that's the goal. Let's get to Salem, and I think that creates a lot of excitement in and of itself. So the committee has talked about it in both years. This has not been something that's solidified in any way, shape, or form, and so I thought I was actually looking forward to seeing with the next bid cycle to see what kinds of bids we have and whether or not any of them include locations that would be interested in doing this more than just 1 year.
And I should say this, I'm not necessarily saying go to Salem. I'm just saying finding some home that would work for women's basketball. It could be anywhere. Just as you say, it depends on who's interested in bidding. We could talk about the committee until the cows come home, and I know we'll chat off air, and I know I'll have you back on the show several times during the year. I don't want to get too much further into it or use more of your time, but before we go, I do want to ask you about your team. Squad finished 15-11 last year, 10-8 in the conference. You're picked in the preseason poll, as much as you want to take stock in those, to finish third in the Centennial Conference. This Centennial seems to be redeveloping its depth again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really, really strong conference this year. Probably the strongest it's been in a good number of years. I mean, Muhlenberg had a fantastic season last year, and they've returned a whole bunch of folks. And McDaniel has been really strong the last few years. Gettysburg, Dickinson had a great season. They kind of emerged, from not being a playoff team for a few years, and they've got everybody back. And F&M. I mean, so I just really think Gettysburg it's going to be. If there is a top to bottom, it's going to be a pretty thick group, I think.
Knowing Ron Rohn probably listens to the show, I got to ask: do you wish one of the two? Do you wish you could play the team he is now, that's so good, always at the top of the conference, tough to beat, or do you wish he went back to the system days where he was running and gunning it up the floor just to have some fun with it?
Well, I really was. He wasn't doing that when I came into the conference.
Had he already abandoned it?
I think I was at Cabrini then, but no. I mean, I think we beat them the 2 years before last a couple times. So it's, I think the conference itself is just a fun. Yeah. It's a fun conference to be in, and we really beat the heck out of each other because we do play so many league games. We play everybody twice, so it's kind of who's standing at the end of the season.
And obviously, it's fun to watch. And Hopkins could return after an off year last year too. This conference could be pretty deep. Looking at your squad, you have 3 seniors, I believe. So you kind of have a middle of the road in age terms. You have you've got 3 seniors, you've got a number of sophomores and juniors, and a handful of freshmen. Seems a very balanced team going into this year. What should we be on the lookout from this squad moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think we have an excellent freshman class. I'm expecting 3 or 4 of them to play a lot of minutes. And so I think our depth from this year to last year is going to be significantly, we're going to be much deeper, and I think we're just a lot more athletic. So I'm not really sure yet. We've only had 1 scrimmage, and, we're undefeated, right?
Exactly.
So we'll say we open at Montclair, which is... my friend Karen Harvey. So that'll be a tough game. But we figured we were going to play a pretty tough schedule. Then we go to the sales tournament. So we have a really tough schedule early. But I knew that we were going to be, a little bit older, a little bit seasoned. So we're going to see how we can handle that, and hopefully that'll get us ready for the conference.
I was going to say, you're starting it off with a committee game right there against Karen on the Atlantic side with Montclair State, and then you do have a tough test there.
Yes, we do.
DeSales.
We have a really tough opening.
And you've got Stevens in the mix on December 3rd. You've got Immaculata in the middle of January, kind of in the middle of that conference schedule. You really do have kind of an interesting schedule outside of conference this year. But how important is it going to be to get the job done in the conference?
I mean, you know, that's at the end of the day. So we play so many conference games, so it's just it's tough. And you know, the difference between second and seventh can sometimes come down to that last game of the season. You know, and it's very, very similar to what the men have in our conference each year. So I think this year will be more like that. But, you know, we're excited. I mean, you know, we have made the playoffs the last 5 years, which has been kind of a neat thing here at Haverford. And, you know, and we'd love to go back and do what we did in 2014. You know, that's the goal. That's the goal. So to win the championship. So we'll see. We're still kind of young. We're probably going to start 2 or 3 sophomores or potentially even a freshman, and you know, and 2 juniors. So wow. It's going to be a pretty young group again, but a little bit more seasoned. So
if no one remembers the 2013-14 campaign, 24-4, 15-3 in the conference. And by the way, I don't know if we mentioned at the beginning, your previous life, you were a journalist for 15 years. I can guess the reasons, but what drew you out of journalism into coaching? Because it certainly wasn't a necessarily getting your life back scenario.
You know what? I did both at the same time. So for years I had been, you know, I was part-time assistant at Widener, and then I coached high school and raised my family, and I had a full-time job working in newspapers that enabled me to coach high school. And I think when I went back after staying home with my kids for a couple of years, it was time to see that the writing literally was on the wall for newspapers. So I went back into coaching full time, and you know, I loved it. I loved every minute of it, though, and I there's parts of it I still miss because, you know, it was always every day was something different, and but you know, this has been a great going into full time coaching has been great too. So both have been fun.
Well, entering your 9th season at Haverford, I think you're 15th overall. Congratulations! I look forward to chatting with you down the road as we get into the season. Just let's get into the season, and then we'll talk about other things that come along. But as always, I give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to working with the committee again. It's such a fun, hard-working group, and I'm just really excited to work with them again. And hopefully everybody will have a successful season and healthy, and we'll have a great tournament again.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Bobbi Morgan joining us again, chair of the Division III Women's Basketball Committee and head coach at Haverford. They're off to start with Montclair and DeSales in their first 2 games of the season. When we come back, we'll talk to some of the coaches who either won championships or are the preseason #1 for the first time in a while. It's 4 different teams. We talked to a bunch across the country coming up on the season debut of Hoopsville. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by the WBCA and the NABC. More from Hoopsville right after this.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe student athletes can help break down the barriers of exclusion.
I pledge to support and encourage my teammates
to support my campus's LGBTQ student group
by volunteering and participating in events.
If you can play in Division III.
We are Division III student athletes, and you can be too. If you can play in Division III.
I coined my definition of success in 1934. My definition of success is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. It's like reputation and character. Reputation is what others perceive you to be. Character is what you are.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the season debut. Our season is underway. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're a little bit behind schedule, so we're going to keep things moving. A lot to cram in the next 50 minutes, so bear with us. Talk to the 2 committee chairs. So now we're going to, in the next hour, talk to both the defending champs and the 2 preseason #1 teams. They are not the same this year, so we have 4 guests ahead. So we're going to waste little time, and we're going to jump immediately back to the Hoopsville hotline. And joining us there, defending champs from last season, the St. Thomas Tommies, and Coach John Tower joins us on the show. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Hey, Dave, thanks. It's great to be back. Fun to start a new season, and always good to chat with you.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, especially as we look ahead. And obviously, defending champs, you guys at least got still a little bit of love in the top 25 with that number 1 first place vote, sitting number 10. But you guys, let's be honest, lost a lot from last year's team, and we'll cover all of that as we go on here. But first and foremost, the fact that you guys won the championship, you beat an undefeated Benedictine team. I am sure all the way up until practice there was still a bit of an euphoria about that.
Yeah, I think there's, certainly every off season brings with it, a lot of times it's March sadness. But last year was a magical run, and, not just Benedictine, but, Christopher Newport and Augustana, who was ranked number 1, and, Whitman and Elmhurst and Central. I mean, it was a magical ride, and what a way for our 6 seniors to go out. There's no doubt we lost, 5 of our top 7 guys were seniors. So it was a fun off season, and also one where, we're trying to plan and how do we rebuild a little bit, but the things that our guys got to go through, whether it was, they were honored by the Timberwolves and the Minnesota Wild and the Twins and the Governor. So it really all the different things that they got to do were both well-deserved and a lot of fun.
Obviously the second time through that for yourself, but it was neat to see you guys honored by so many. What's it mean for, and I don't want to, you know me, I'm not belittling Division III in any way because that's the last thing I do, but what's it mean for a Division III program like yourself to get that attention from the bigger entities, especially in your city?
Yeah, there are a lot of pro sports franchises, so we're, Division III schools are, there are a few around the country that I think are the biggest show in town, but in a place like the Twin Cities where, the Gophers are here and there's 4 pro sports, I think our guys, they don't play for the recognition. It's, the love of the game and the intrinsic desire to be great, but to have that recognized where there's 420-some teams and we ended up on top, I think certainly that was the culmination of pretty amazing ride, and we enjoyed every minute of it.
You did lose 5 players of the top 7 on that squad that won that national championship, but you bring back, let's call him the super senior in Grant Schaefer, and I don't mean because he's playing an extra year, but because he's been pretty much your go-to guy for several years now. He has certainly been what makes the team click, as it were. What's it mean, and is this maybe the reason you guys are still the pick to win the conference and still a high pick in the poll, that you still have experience in Schaefer and guys who played a lot of minutes coming off the bench, that you guys aren't necessarily reloading, you're just retooling?
Well, I don't know what people pick us. I don't know what goes into that. And we joke within the conference about it, how you prognosticate and nationally as well. It's impossible, right?
Sure.
The polls are when they're not printed on paper anymore, but the online paper, so to speak, that they're printed on, they're not worth a lot, but they're fun to look at. I think the thing about Grant is that he really has been both a consummate leader for 3 years. Even as a freshman, he had those qualities. And, some of that, he's a quarterback on a 2-time state football champion in Minnesota in the largest class. So he is one of the better players and people I've ever coached. And he's going to be a huge part of anything we're able to accomplish this year. But he also knows it's going to be a different role. You look at last year, and he was one of, 4 captains with Taylor Montero and Cortez Tillman and Ryan Sarla, and along with Jimmy Remke. Those guys aren't around anymore. So his role is going to be different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he needs to try and go and score 25 points a game. It's really mentoring the young guys, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job of that. We know there's going to be some growing pains, but I think he's really embracing this as, every year is a different part of the journey, and this year is going to be a different challenge for him than the first 3. But I could talk about Grant for hours. He's, as fun a guy as I've ever coached, and he just brings a certain, he loves to get better, and he loves practice and competition, and thrilled to have him on our side.
I'm more baffled that Glenn Caruso, the football coach, has not stolen him away from you. He is the prototypical quarterback in Glenn's mind. We've seen plenty of those kinds of guys on that football team. How you still have him and Glenn hasn't stolen him is amazing to me.
Well, the short left-handed quarterback, I think Glenn's probably tried. They have plenty of good quarterbacks on the roster, and they're having another phenomenal season. They just found out where they're playing next Saturday. But no, Glenn's office is next door, and we have a lot of fun talks. And Grant, there's no question if Grant, I think, had wanted to play football in college, he would have been a tremendous quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen him, especially at St. Thomas. You got 3 other seniors on the squad. Will Dunn, Ryan Johnson, and Jordan Burrich. You also have other players who certainly have experience. What's going to be the key for this team to be successful this year?
Well, I think every team's identity unfolds over the course of a year. And, Ryan Bowl is another returning starter who last year, the sophomore, did just an outstanding job as, really our defensive stopper. And I thought he's capable. In fact, last year, I think he had scored more points in high school than any of the other guys on our roster. But as a sophomore, he was, he really bought into a role of being a complementary player on the offensive end and just a stalwart guy on defense. So he's going to be important to what we do. But I think also, I look back last year when we were in Hoopsville and we played Jason's team at Emory, and, you and I had a lot of talks, and Dan's Southern Vermont team, and two really good teams. And our team, certainly our identity at that point was not fully formed. Mm-hmm. So we know these early season games, that's a lot of it, is trying to figure out who are the young guys that step in. And we open against River Falls on Tuesday, who's going to be really, really good. So, you never want to say what you think your season's going to be like. I know that, we're going to try and form that identity over the next couple of weeks, and just aspire to get better and better, every week throughout the season, which is certainly a long grind.
When you look at the schedule, River Falls to start on Tuesday at home, then you head out to the Pacific Northwest to Puget Sound, where you'll play Pacific Lutheran and Puget Sound. Back home, St. Scholastica. Out-of-conference games that jump out at me. You've got Stevens Point on the radar, and you've got some other teams there. Obviously, some big games there. Also, some different games. A trip to the Pacific Northwest right before Thanksgiving, kind of that Hoopsville weekend like you did last year. Is this about enjoying the season a little bit? I mean, I'm assuming the pressure's off.
Oh, I don't know. Pressure's self-imposed, I think.
Fair point.
I think, there's a little bit of a target on our back, but we've told the guys from day one, this is a different team, whether we'd won the title last year or not. Every season's a new journey. So we're excited to go out to, the Seattle area, and we've got some fun things for the team planned. One of our alums works for Microsoft, and so they're going to get a tour there, and one of our alums is the general manager of the Seahawks. So we're going to get to watch them practice a little bit, and then play two really good teams. We played Whitworth and Whitman a couple times each in the last few years. And so it's fun seeing those teams. A lot of great basketball in that conference, and it's a good experience for our guys to see a different area of the country and play against some teams they don't see. But our non-conference is challenging, and the conference is going to be really good again. So we're just, we're excited, but we also know we kind of don't know where we stand until we get going.
Yeah, what about the conference? St. Olaf last year, 19 wins, 14-6 in conference. St. John's, 19 wins, 13-7 in conference. You guys had two blemishes during that conference run. Concordia Moorhead has appeared. 18 wins for Bethel, even though they were 12-8 in conference. Even Augsburg had a winning percentage. Carrollton had a winning percentage. This conference has gotten pretty darn good in the last couple of years. You've won it 11 times. I know you're not about to write in a 12th. What do you expect a conference play this year?
I thought last year was as deep and balanced as the MIC's ever been. And, Bethel returns all 5 starters there. Doug is loaded this year, and I think everybody else is retooling a little bit. But really, the teams that probably weren't in the playoffs last year return a lot, and I think could jump into the playoffs. And I think the people who were at the top last year lost a fair amount, whether it was us or Concordia or Gustavus or St. John's, St. Olaf. Everybody lost a lot. And so, yeah, it's, St. Olaf has had an unbelievable 3-year run, probably the best in the history of their program, and St. John's is always good. Gustavus is. So I think it's an exciting, going into the season, it's exciting because I really think it's probably as open as it's been, with the exception of Bethel, bringing back a tremendous amount of talent, and they're really well coached. So that's, that's the early look at the conference, but it's going to be, I think, wide open from the start.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Obviously, congratulations once again on the national championship in Salem. I know you'd love to get back to Salem. I know it's just going to be maybe a little bit harder this year, but good luck that way. Good luck on the trip to the Northwest. It's a pretty great opportunity for everybody. As always, as you know, we give the final word to the coach. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, it's, we're always grateful and appreciative, Dave, of what you guys do. And, I think our team and our program has had a lot of fun, whether it, the Final Four the last, 3 times in the last 6 years, Hoopsville last year, and seeing you, and just the things that you guys have done for Division III to provide some recognition. But it's, it's also, I think, become a much smaller world where, we know more about the teams in the East and the South and the West because of what you do. And the preseason's a lot more fun because of that. You can speculate a lot more because you know about the teams. And so thank you for that. And, we're excited to get going. We look forward to a great season, and so many coaches out there that do great jobs with their teams, and it's going to be a wild season.
It is going to be a wild season. Thanks for the kind words. I love chatting with you all the time, even off the air. I look forward to it down the road. By the way, this studio is missing St. Thomas stuff. I'm really surprised we don't have something from St. Thomas in the studio. You and I will have to talk about this.
We'll talk about that. We'll get you some gear, a T-shirt, or maybe you'd look good in a St. Thomas headband. That's what
headband.
I could see that. You're kind of a rugged Kurt Rambis type. That's how I'm picturing you as a player back in the 80s.
Yeah, and we have officially gone off the rails. Hey, sir, but nice reference. I like it. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know we'll talk down the road, and good luck to start the season.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Have a great night.
You do the same. John Tower joining us from the 2016 national champ, St. Thomas Tommies. The season starts new for them again on Tuesdays. They will host River Falls before heading to the Great Northwest at Puget Sound, as we mentioned. And we'll take on Pacific Lutheran and Puget Sound out there before coming back home. Stevens Point's an interesting game on their radar, and almost every conference game is going to be interesting as well. Going to take another break. When we come back, we will talk to Dave Hixon, the new #1 team in the country. Will join us from Amherst College. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
It starts right when you hit the court. You imagine your finest moment. The game-winning shot that gets you to the dance. A monster dunk or no-look pass, and cutting down the net. Sports lets us dream of our own success and prepare us for our finest moments on and off the court.
I'm a current Division III student athlete, and I remember how intimidating the first year of college can be.
So if you're a first-year student athlete and nervous about coming out as LGBTQ, I pledge to stand by your side as your ally.
If you can play Division III.
We are Division III student athletes, and you can be too. If you can play in Division III.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. Just getting our tweet out about our next guest. You can follow us on Twitter at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We also have a chat room, by the way, we should mention on our YouTube page, but barely anybody uses it. We do monitor it. We check it a couple times a show, but please don't use that as your all reliable, as it were. Quick note, we joked with John Tower about the studio, about how we dress it up in Division III gear. You see the Ohio Wesleyan number 22 signed by Lauren Hill jersey that we feature prominently behind me. Greenville jersey. We have a Brockport jersey, the center jersey. There's many people who thought I graduated from center, and that's why we've got a center jersey. It kind of cracks me up a little bit. No. We also have the Hopkins warm-up jersey, which we've had for probably 10 some odd years. It is an awesome practice jersey that we have there too. We encourage anybody, if you send us stuff, we will put it up behind us. If you send us a polo, we'll wear it on the show someday. We're not looking to wear gear. We're not looking for freebies. We're certainly not doing that, but we want to promote Division III, and the best way to promote it sometimes is to give some love on our studio wall. Now let's get right on to the next one. We went from the defending champs to the preseason #1 team, and joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is that particular squad. It is Amherst and Dave Hixon, head coach of the squad, coming on. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville. Well, you know what? I didn't hit the button. There we go. Now you're on Hoopsville. Hey, sir.
There we go.
There we go.
I got it.
Welcome to the show. First and foremost, have we figured out the mascot thing yet?
No.
Okay. Darn it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm a little bit of an old timer, and purple and white's okay with me. I'm not so sure I'm going to like the end result of this whole thing.
Oh, I don't want to even guess, but I will go. I will try and remember purple and white. I will certainly just try and not remember the old one. First and foremost, number one team in the country, and this is not to be in any way disrespectful of that, but were you surprised you were the number one team in the preseason poll?
I was surprised. I absolutely surprised. I certainly very honored, and on one hand thrilled to be it, but on the other hand, it's a heavy burden, and but I was surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, as a top 25 voter, it was a tough decision. You guys did get it all the way to Salem, but you did lose a few key parts to that team. Granted, you got a lot of good talent coming back, but Connor Greens and the like are gone. How do you guys retool for this season?
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting. I think, Connor's the only kid we lost that played, and but Connor was a great scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And but, as the year went on, we won some games when he was sitting, and I think the team really matured well. I think, there's not going to be a spectacular play, I don't think, like there was, but I think we'll play sort of as a more solid five out there. I think people will be a bit more predictable. People will know what we're doing, including ourselves. And but Connor was spectacular that way. I mean, Connor could just come down and he'd pull from anywhere, and he'd make them, and he'd miss them too, but he made more than he missed. And so I think as a team, I think we're going to be a little bit better as a team. Whether that results in more wins or losses, I don't know.
Obviously, practices for you guys just started 13 days ago as the NESCAC starts on November 1. So you're still kind of getting to know your team just a little bit. Something you told me in the off air, if you don't mind sharing, is the fact that when you start, though, you really don't know your team. You keep the doors open a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. And so when this team came in, like today, when yesterday we scrimmaged a bit amongst ourselves. We had a Thursday night, we had an official inter-squad scrimmage, but up until that time, we really have been spending time teaching, trying to figure out who the guys are, trying to figure out who the new guys are, see who did their work over the summer and during the fall. And we really don't see them until November 1st. And we don't have outside scrimmages. If we do, we lose games. And so it's, we're a little bit behind the eight ball, but I really like the team. I have to tell you that it's a really fun group of guys to work with. And, this group of freshmen we brought in, they're really competing hard and pushing the upperclassmen, which is great.
And what I mean is you actually have open tryouts. I mean, you still have the opportunity for guys to join this squad that you didn't even know were on campus.
Yeah, we do. And that's a policy that I've had for my 40 seasons, and that's how I was brought up, that, we have an open door. So anybody that wants to try out can. And so we only had one this year. But,
okay.
We typically have two or three, and it lasts a couple days, and we try to figure it out.
You may have only had one senior last year. It is not the case this year. You've got 7. Of course, one of the names that will jump out to everybody will be David George from that senior class. But Reed Berman, Jeff Racy, Brady Holding, Jacob Nabatoff, Diego Magana, and Eric Conklin. So obviously you have, and this is probably what the voters saw, was a number of players who have gotten a ton of experience, especially that trip back to Salem last year. Obviously, a lot of people are going to see the 6'8" in David George and maybe even the 6'10" in Joseph Snyder and figure you guys might pound it inside. But I know it may be a little bit of a loaded question, but what will be the makeup of this team, or what will be the identity of this team?
Yeah, and first, and just Jay Dawson is also a senior.
Oh, did I miss Jay?
Yeah,
he's listed as a junior, but technically a senior, you're saying?
That's right. Eligibility-wise, he's a senior.
Okay.
The makeup of the team, well, it's going to be interesting. We're going to do the things pretty similar to what we've done. We've made a few changes, but, we're going to be working harder this year to become more of an outside, an inside-out team. I mean, we've always shot the ball well, and we've really worked hard in these 13 days to get our interior guys, because we've got, I think, 4 good ones. C.J. Bachman's the 4th that you didn't mention, but Joe Schneider at 6'10", and David George and Eric Conklin, and we think we can create a presence inside, and then that'll even open things up more for us on the outside. And so we've been working really hard at that.
This conference will be, in the last few years, has certainly been rather interesting. Trinity won it last year at 9-1. You guys were 8-2. Of course, 2 years prior to that, or 2 seasons ago, Wesleyan won the conference from the 7-hole, I believe it was.
Right.
Tufts obviously was in the mix. Middlebury seems to be returning. Wesleyan's still there. Williams is slowly coming back to the fold. Colby's in the mix. I mean, this is a deep conference. You had double-digit wins, by the way, in everybody in the conference. Outside of total play, Bates with 10, Hamilton 11, Connecticut College and above were all above 500. Is this conference going to stay that way? There has been some that say this may be a 2-horse race at the top, kind of like the old way of doing it. Or do you think it's going to stay as deep as it has been?
Oh, I think it's deep, and it may be 8 deep. I don't know. I mean, it may be that it's not all 11 this year. There's a couple that are retooling and rebuilding a bit, but. I'll tell you, I think it's a team that you didn't mention, Connecticut College, is incredibly talented and actually missed a dunk at the end of the game, or they would have beaten us on our home floor last year. And
I watched that.
And so they don't make the conference tournament, and so I think it's a matter of as those kids mature and learn to win, they're going to be able to play with everybody, and so I think it's going to be a really strong conference. I think it's going to be a tough one. I really do.
I think you were picked to win it. Well, you guys, I don't remember. I don't remember if that's the case.
No, we don't do that. We don't.
Yeah, you guys don't do that. Okay, so everybody else picked you to win it. Let's put it that way. And obviously, being the number 1 team in the preseason poll puts a nice big target on you guys.
Big time.
It's not like you haven't gone down this road before, but how do you tame expectations, or how do you keep the team maybe inside the pocket, as it were?
Yeah, well, I tell you what we do is from the get-go. I mean, we've had shirts that say "entitled to nothing" on it. That's our big thing because I really get concerned when we get a preseason ranking like this that, we should be good. How good, I don't know, but we should be good. But we've got to earn every single night, every single game. And there's so many good teams out there. I mean, we meet. I know you're going to talk region soon, but we meet Babson right away. We meet Brandeis right away. We have an Eastern Connecticut game at the beginning of the new year, and so there's some. And in our tournament, which is a little bit unusual, we have Johnson and Wales and St. Lawrence, who are both going to be very strong.
Yeah.
Returning, and they're on the other side of our bracket, and that's really early for us to play 18 or 19 days into practice.
Yeah, I was going to say the 18th. You'll start off with Green Mountain, who not anybody really understands what team will come out of that after a tumultuous year last year. And then you mentioned the other side of the bracket of your tournament. Then Anna Maria, Westfield State, Emerson, then Brandeis, Babson, who we think maybe, or Brandeis, who may be kind of back in the fold a little bit.
I think they are.
Springfield's in that mix. Eastern Connecticut, who's always good, is in that mix. And obviously you then get into conference play. You have Rhode Island College, who still plays spoiler. They're still a good team that you can't overlook. You got a pretty decent schedule. Again, and no disrespect, you have the usual warm-up, as it were. You like to kind of build your schedule a little bit at the beginning. But Brandeis and Babson are on December 6th and 8th, so you kind of see them a little bit quick this year, a little sooner than you saw Babson last year. Is there an expectation for the team? Do you have a goal in mind of what you want to do before you make the turn for the Christmas holiday?
No, but we go one game at a time, and we try to win one game at a time. And so if you can add those up, you know where we want to be. But it's just it's too much to look ahead. You really, if I were going to Bill Belichick you, every time you ask me a question, I go Green Mountain, Green Mountain, Green Mountain.
For the record, everybody, when you and I talked in the off season, one of the comments you made to me was, do you know anything about Green Mountain? You clearly are focused on Green Mountain, and certainly don't want to take anything away from that. And obviously that game is coming up on Friday. Switch gears before we let you go of time. You did get a chance to at least revel in the off season a little bit. Your son qualified for the Rio Olympics, went down there and won a medal. I believe it was bronze, correct, at the 3-meter synchronized event?
It was actually silver.
It was silver. Okay, I couldn't. Yeah, sorry, my memory's a little fuzzy on it. I remember watching it mainly because I was staring to find you in a crowd shot. I will not bring up the shot I found. You were definitely focused. And then he also competed in the 3-meter individual event as well. Just tell me the experience, though, going down to Rio to watch your son compete in the Olympics. I just cannot fathom what that is like.
Yeah, and it's hard to describe. I mean, naturally, there's a lot of pride there. But it was great because my oldest son came down and had to spend 11 days with his mother and I in confined quarters, which was great. And so we had a lot of good family time. Michael, the Olympian, did take time out and had dinner with us a bunch of different times.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we spent 11 days down there, and it was phenomenal. Phenomenal experience and phenomenal to see him compete so well.
How was the green pool?
Well, it's interesting, when you're diving outdoors and you have to spot, you have to spot when you're spinning. And if you look up and it's blue and look down and it's blue, it's actually better if you look down and it's different than the blue above and it's green. So there you go.
That's a fair point. And how was the experience overall? I mean, I think everybody went in with tons of fears, and it turned out to be a pretty decent Olympics outside of the games. But from your point of view, what was it like to be down in Rio for the Olympics from a non-competition level?
It was tremendous. I mean, other than traffic, which is always going to be a problem when you have that many people around.
Yeah.
It was amazing. The beaches were pristine, and they'd been built up as being dirty, and they got them all clean. The place where the kids stayed, the village, was fantastic. There was a really heavy military presence, which I don't think I actually saw two people yell at each other, point at each other, say a disparaging word the whole 11 days I was there. It was festive. It was great sportsmanship down there. It was absolutely terrific. It was I couldn't ask for anything better.
Before we let you go, before we move on, what did you see besides the diving events? Did you get to anything else?
Well, we got to a couple basketball games. We got to
surprising.
When we got to watch golf. We got to watch golf, and the golf was great.
That was cool.
Really good.
Awesome. I'm sure.
Really cool.
That is great. Well, thanks for coming on the show, sir. I'll admit I was jealous you were down the Olympics. That's one on my bucket list, though I'd like to be with a press pass around my neck working it, because I think that'd be an awesome experience.
That would be awesome. Well, go to Tokyo. I'll see you in Tokyo.
That's true. I was going to say, I assume Michael would be focused on Tokyo.
Yeah, he's already better than he was, and so he's gearing up.
Awesome. Well, that'll be fun to be sure. But congratulations again. Look forward to seeing what the purple and white do as they take the floor against Green Mountain coming up on Friday. And as you know, we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
No, the final thought is it's exciting. This is a great time of the year. None of us really know what we can do, and so it's great for you to put us out there and talk about all this stuff and get the excitement going. And I can't wait. I know some guys are starting on the 15th, which is Tuesday, and we're starting on the weekend, but this is the week. It all gets going.
Yep.
And, we love what you do. Thanks for doing it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Look forward to seeing you, maybe in Salem, if not before, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Okay, great, Dave.
Take care. Dave Hixon.
Bye-bye.
Joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. The purple and white, again, take to the floor against Green Mountain on Friday. They then play on the 19th. As he pointed out, it's either St. Lawrence or Johnson and Wales, I believe he said, on the other side of that. Big games to look at. The 6th, really the 3rd even, against Emerson, but the 6th and the 8th against Brandeis and Babson, and the 14th against Springfield before the holiday break. Eastern Connecticut on the 3rd of January is going to be a key game, and then they get into the conference round robin. Not the traditional, but they play a couple extra conference games against as the little 3, as we know, against Wesleyan, and Williams also has a game in there against Rhode Island College. So looking forward to seeing that. Behind schedule, so we're going to keep it going. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll shift gears and talk women's basketball. Jeff Hans will join us from the defending national champs Thomas More Saints. We'll talk about this post-Sidney Moore life. They're still going to be good, but just how good are they going to be? The Saints join us on Hoopsville when we return with more Hoopsville after this.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
This is our It's On Us pledge. It's on us to make a personal commitment to help keep all people safe from sexual assault, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, or ability.
Not to be bystanders to the problem, but to be leaders of the solution.
We invite you to join us in this campaign by informing your campuses about the It's On Us mission.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Cheer for the stumbles. The he shoulda had that's. And the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born. Cheer for the stumbles. The he shoulda had that's. And the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're going to keep things moving along. We're going to shift gears now and talk women's basketball. We're going to talk to the defending national champions. Of course, go 2 seasons undefeated, win 2 back-to-back championships, almost go 3 seasons undefeated and win 3 championships. It was thanks mainly to an incredible player in Sydney Moss. Now it's the post-Sydney Moss life for Thomas More, and they still may be good. They are still one of the top teams in the country. Well, at least that's what us prognosticators say. What do the head coach say? Well, let's go find out from him. Jeff Hans joins us on the Hoopsville hotline. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Dave, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great, thanks.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. As I said in the intro, we're now into the post-Sydney Moss life. I do know of people who have said they. I had a student athlete who told me she had gone to your camp and had changed her mind in part because of that camp on what Division III was going to be like. You still have a good team without Sydney Moss. You had a good team without Sydney Moss in the first place. But what feels different now for you guys?
Just the expectations. I mean, we still have high expectations. I still have high expectations, and the people around the community. Some of them do, some of them don't. They think we're going to be 500 without her because they don't remember the days before. And I think this group is ready to get started on Tuesday night and try to prove a bunch of people wrong. And and that's what we're looking forward to. Forward to the challenge.
I was going to say, I mean, let's remember something. Last year, 33-0, won a championship. The year before, 33-0, won a championship. The year before that, with Sydney Moss, 31-1, lost in the Elite Eight when she injured herself. Or you may have been 34-0 and winning a championship. The year before that, you were 27-2. You didn't have Sydney Moss. You were 25-5 in 2012. You didn't have Sydney Moss that. The program was 30-1 in 2011, 26-4. I can't find a season where you lost more than 5 games on the D3Hoops.com website because we only go back to 2007. This has always been a good program. You guys just hadn't broken through yet, basically.
Yeah, and that whole senior class helped us. I mean, we lost this year, the 5 of them.
Right.
All helped us, and Sydney was a big part of that, and they all were because they hated to lose, as you could tell. And so now everybody's trying to continue that, and we're finding our way because we have 3 really good starters back,
right.
And Abby Owings, Madison Temple, and Nikki Kiernan, but everybody else is a little inexperienced, and so we're trying to find our way through some things in our 2 scrimmages and in practice every day, and I think we're getting there. I think we're getting close, and looking forward to opening up down at center on Tuesday.
You have 4 or 5 seniors on this squad as well. Kristen Paul. I never say hi. Is it Hignite?
Hignite, Micah Hignite.
Micah Hignite. I was overthinking it. Kelly McDonald, Kaylee Bush, and Hannah Devine. And so you still have talent, and you've got a conference that you have dominated for years. Though Washington Jefferson has certainly improved, and Waynesburg and Grove City have kind of gotten into the fray a little bit. I guess there is a little bit of a coming back to earth a little bit, but again, by your standards, what do you think? Is this a conference you can once again go out there and win? And can you guys? I don't want to say dominate a season. That's a horrible way of putting it, but at least go through the season pretty strongly again.
We're going to try to. I mean, our conference is getting better every single year, and we're looking forward to that part of it. But our non-conference to start with schedule is it's tough. Mm-hmm. At Maryville, who we played in the Sweet 16 here, we're going down there, and Coach Trevelyan, he does a good job, and it's going to be hopefully a good atmosphere down there. And then when Denison at our Julie Costello Memorial Classic over Thanksgiving weekend, who NCAA tournament team, and by some accounts has one of the best players in the country, and Jordan Holmes inside. Yeah. And so we're going to get challenged early, and that's a good thing to help us prepare for the conference, so that we can look at trying to make another run at it and making a dent in the NCAA tournament again.
Illinois Wesleyan on your schedule as well, and obviously conference schedule. What has been the experience like since Indianapolis? Obviously, winning the national championship in arguably the best game of the three games that took place against a tough squad. And nothing against anybody there, but no one was going to beat UConn, so those other games really didn't matter. But and I don't mean there's three. There was obviously two semifinal games that took place too. But what's been the experience like since that win, and now winning two championships in a row? That's
been incredible. Incredible for our players to experience the whole Indianapolis phenomenon, is what I'll say, because just to be treated that way is student athletes and young ladies. It was a great experience, and I guess the biggest thing I take is out on the recruiting trail, listening to all the coaches say how awesome it was, how great of a time they had watching Division II and Division III play on the day off in between, and how they would like for it to happen every year. But we know that may not happen, and but I tell you, if it does happen again, and it's great for whoever can get there. And just to be able to cherish those moments and then that lifetime experience.
Talking to Jeff Hans here, the women's basketball coach at Thomas More. The Saints coming off a 31-0 season, 62-0, 62 straight wins. No pressure, but you're 2/3 of the way to Wash U's record. Has Nancy called you yet to discourage you or encourage you?
No, nope. And I hope we have a chance. We'll see. Because that's a great run that she had, and I don't know if anybody will ever get to it.
I was going to say, I mean, you probably haven't even thought about it until I brought it up. So I you're welcome. No. So obviously there's a lot of tough. It's tough to go undefeated, period. So it's going to be tough. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, and I don't want to dwell on Sydney, but we know how good she was. We also know how good she made her teammates. Have you noticed in preseason having to encourage them to maybe do something different or do more because they were used to Sydney being there?
Yeah, in some ways, because if things were going bad, she's going to go make a play.
Yeah.
She's going to go get a defensive rebound, or she's going to do something on a defensive end to get a deflection to lead to a steal or something like that. And on the offense, offense side of the ball, she's going to get a basket. Or she's going to draw enough a double team, triple team to get somebody else a very good shot, and so that's been part of what we've talked about a lot, is trying to continue that and figure out where all of it's coming from, and having our players understand that it's going to be everybody. It's to fill that role and that void, to be able to make a play. Maybe Abby one game, and maybe Nikki one game, and maybe Madison Temple one quarter, or somebody else, Shelby Rupp or Kirsten Paul, or somebody else that has to step in and do those things to of course a lower level than what Sydney would do it. Sure. But still, it's that security blanket is that we had for the last 3 years. It's not there, and it takes time. I mean, when she's that talented and can do those many things, and she's in the program for 3 years and helps make everybody around her better, leading the country in assist to turnover ratio last year. It's while scoring 22 points a game after leading the country and scoring her first 2 years. I mean, that's a big loss. And, but we're getting there, and it takes time. And if coaches tell you how great they're doing now, I don't know. They're doing something. They got the magic formula that we don't have. I know that.
I haven't heard that yet from any coach. I'm pretty used to not hearing that until about Salem and for you guys, Calvin, that's next year. That's about the only time I hear anybody say they're doing well. So what's the message to the team for against Center on Tuesday? You'll play that game, obviously, on the road, heading a little bit south.
Message: do what we're supposed to do. Play together, play hard. It's a new season, new team. And just try to establish our identity for 2016-17 and make sure that we're ready to go and continue to get better so that we can have a chance in February.
Well, it's certainly going to be fun to watch, to see what you guys do this year as the new Saints. And as you said, you were good prior. You're probably going to be good after. We'll just see how it transitions from here. But congratulations on, once again, that championship in Indianapolis. It was a wonderful event. We look forward to seeing what the Saints do the rest of the way. As always, give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
It's great to be back. It's great for November 15th to be 2 days away. And, wish everybody across the country good luck this season. Stay healthy. And look forward to a great year of Division III basketball.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Good luck, Coach. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jeff Hans joining us from Thomas More. The Saints, again, 62 straight victories. If you skip out that one loss, they have 92 victories in 93 games in the last 3 seasons. It will change, but they're still going to be good, and they're a preseason number 4 team. One of the most amazing things was watching Sydney Moss in the championship, because she wasn't the best player on the floor necessarily, and I just mean by production. She certainly was the best player. I just mean production-wise. She was not the go-to for the Thomas More Saints for a while. Second half, she turned it on, but with her teammates, and that's what drove them to a championship. They beat Tufts in that championship game in Indianapolis, and Tufts is a new preseason number 1 team. We will talk to their head coach on Hoopsville coming up. Carla Berube will join us. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Again, Carla Berube, up next here on Hoopsville.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
For the love of the game. That's what it's all about, they say. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
It's more about team and the schools and communities we represent.
And for the many of us blessed with the strength to compete in sport at the college level, we understand that with what we were given comes a special obligation.
Our obligation to help those who have their own special needs and whose love for the game is no less intense.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. Since August of 2011, we and others from Division III campus communities have volunteered more than 250,000 hours, time away from the classroom and practice field, reaching across the country to coach and mentor Special Olympics athletes.
And to learn that in giving, we receive so much more in return. Help us keep that dream alive.
Be part of it.
Get involved.
You can make a difference.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. The season debut of this show this year. Hope you're enjoying it. We will be on the air Sundays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, except for next Sunday. Coming off of the Hoopsville Classic, we will be a little bit exhausted. We'll also have done a number of interviews with the coaches taking part in that event, and so those interviews will substitute for our show, but we'll be back on the air the following Sunday for a run right through December. December's going to be a little bit busy as we balance soccer as well. I'll be down in Salem calling the soccer championships, and we will then also have Stag Bowl. I'll be in Salem 10 days apart. It's going to be a little crazy. And then obviously we have the D3Hoops.com Classic. So we'll be mixing shows in when we can throughout the month of December. But again, starting last year, we now do these shows on Sundays in November and December to give Division III a little bit more attention that it certainly deserves. Got questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. So the team that Thomas More defeated in the national championship, and it was a great game, was the Tufts Jumbos. Tufts, its reward, as it were, is now they're the preseason #1 team. What does that all mean? Who knows? But one person we can certainly get an insight on the Jumbos from is their head coach, and Carla Berube joins us on the Hoopsville hotline. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I know it was a loss, and that's tough to get over, especially when you get all the way to Indianapolis and get a chance to play in front of everybody. But how much have you guys appreciated in the long run the fact you got to play in Indianapolis on the floor of Division I and in front of all those great fans?
Yeah, it was an incredible experience, to say the least. What the NCAA did for us in Division II and putting us on that stage, just a tremendous experience for my players, for my staff, for the administration, for our alumni. It was unreal. It was they treated us like rock stars and like the Division I team. So. Yeah, I mean, it stung to have gotten all the way there and not, come out with a win, but just the memories and those experiences will definitely last a lifetime.
And that was a heck of a game. You guys, your team played well. I mean, I think people started going, maybe the Jumbos can pull this off late in that game. And obviously, we won't dwell on that game necessarily, but you had to be proud with how your team was able to get there and really put it to the Saints for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we, the defensive game plan went, according to what we wanted it to, and did a great job on Sydney. And it's pick your poison. Take her away or put it in the hands of somebody else to make plays. And so in the long run, it was just, we couldn't put the biscuit in the basket. To put it, just had trouble scoring down the stretch. And but. We were right there, made it a game in the fourth quarter and a great comeback. But Thomas More was such a tough team on both ends of the floor. And like Jeff was saying, they had a great team outside and they have a great team outside of Sydney. And that's not going to change for, I'm sure, a long time.
You're right. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, as the season moves on, you guys now have the target a little bit on your back as being the preseason #1. Obviously, the conference is going to be tough, as it always is, especially at the top. You'll start the season off on Friday when you'll play Keene State at Skidmore, and then you'll play Skidmore on Saturday. You've got Wheaton on your radar as well. Brandeis is on the radar of teams. You'll then go to Williams and play St. Lawrence and Clarkson. You've got an interesting collection of University of New England, who was a tournament team last year. Bridgewater State. You've got an interesting collection of teams outside of conference that you're going to play. You're not shying away from the tough competition.
No, I don't think we ever do. We want to play the best teams, that we can in New England. We've got Eastern Connecticut and Babson in January and Emmanuel, all, NCAA teams. So, we, not only playing in, the one of the best conferences in the country in the NESCAC, but we want to challenge ourselves, outside of the conference as well. So that's what we do.
Michaela North, Josie Lee, Katie Hicks, your 3 seniors on this team. And then you actually have quite a bit of youth. You've got a good number of juniors, a couple of sophomores, and a lot of freshmen. What's the goal in the terms of the team this year? And I'm not talking record. I'm not talking whether you win the conference or how far you go in the NCAA tournament. What's the goal internally with the team of what you want to accomplish as the year goes on internally?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting better each and every day, both individually and collectively as a team. It's staying together. It's developing, chemistry, and that's going to happen throughout the season. We don't have that many practices under our belt,
Right.
since starting on November 1st. So it's a work in progress, and I like the way we're working day in and day out. I really like our leadership. Our freshmen are coming along, and I like the experienced players what they're showing so far. So, but it is definitely a work in progress, and I'm looking forward to how we build day in and day out.
What do we expect of this conference? Obviously, yourselves on top with Amherst. Amherst is certainly going to be in the mix this season. I can't imagine they wouldn't be. GP Gormaki's always there. Bowdoin last year was in there with 22-7 and 8-2 in the conference. Connecticut College was tough. Colby was tough. Williams, always with Pat Williams, is a tough team. Is this a two-horse race with you guys and Amherst? Is this a deeper conference than maybe we're used to seeing in the sense of 4, 5, maybe 6 teams who can play a role? What do you expect if you read the tea leaves?
Oh, absolutely. This is not a two-horse race. This is a deep NESCAC season for sure. I know a lot of the teams have some great returners and some really top newcomers, and I think we have some of the best coaches in the country in our league. So we know that every Friday night, Saturday afternoon, it's going to be a battle, no matter who we're playing, and just looking forward to it. Hopefully we get our machine running well for that NESCAC season, because we know how competitive it is.
Back to Indianapolis quickly. If nobody really knows your background, you obviously played at UConn under Gino, and it was kind of cool to see them show up for your game, even if they couldn't stay for the whole time. They obviously have obligations as much as anybody else. But, donning the colors, as it were, and giving you guys support. What was it like to get to Indianapolis and be able to bring your team there where your coach was there as well?
Yeah, it was really special. It was amazing that they came and he was there watching along with his staff. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the Husky pep band played for us.
Yes.
So that was really neat that happened as well.
Learned
and,
your fight song, I believe, in the previous 24 hours.
They did, and it was amazing, and just the whole experience. But having a lot of UConn fans were at the game, and alumni were there to support us, and Husky Blue, we bleed, so and forever, and I'm really proud of where I came from, and it just everyone is loyal there. It's a big family, so it was a tremendous experience.
Technically, you guys don't bleed blue all that often because you don't lose that often at UConn. There's
right,
not many dings on the armor all that often.
I don't know. This season might be a little different, but
He does lose a ton.
He's got something up his sleeve, I'm sure.
I was going to say, it's Gino. It's kind of like Pat Summit back in the day. She always had a trick up her sleeve as well, and you would pull it off.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, appreciate you chatting. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you got plenty to work on ahead of Friday's game against Keene State, and then obviously Skidmore, another NCAA tournament caliber team to take on. And so there's a lot ahead, and I know we will probably chat with you somewhere down the road. But as always, I do appreciate you taking the time. And as always, I give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
Yeah, I'd love to just congratulate our field hockey team making it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Our volleyball team now in the Elite Eight, heading out to Wisconsin. Our men's soccer just won tonight as well, heading to the Sweet 16. Our football team just ended their season 7-1, best record in 20 years. So it's just exciting times here in Medford, and also just excited for the season. And thanks for all you do, Dave. It's going to be, I'm sure, an exciting season.
Oh, I completely agree. And by the way, I think the pressure's off. I think the fall sports took care of all the expectations this season. I think you're good to go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Coach, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
All right. Sounds great.
Carla Berube joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate her taking the time. Normally we would take a break here and go on to do our final segment, but because we're running behind time, I do have a couple notes I want to get done, so we'll wrap up the show now, if you don't mind. Quickly, though, Tufts women's basketball team, certainly good. Watch out for the Tufts men's basketball team this year, too. Coach Sheldon should have a pretty good squad on his side. And that's true across the board and almost all of our guests tonight. St. Thomas women, a top 10 team. They're going to be good. Amherst women, we talk to GP Gromacki all the time. They're always a good squad. They're going to be right in the mix of it, as always. I heard a little bird tell me he thinks GP can go undefeated this season. That's a tall order, especially when you got Tufts in the conference. But we'll see what happens. Thomas More men, maybe the only ones who won't be on a lot of people's radar, but they can certainly feed off the women and be talented. And we mentioned, again, the Tufts women. And I want to, obviously we have Haverford. We had Haverford's coach on talking about the committee, but, Haverford's going to be in the mix in the Centennial, which is going to be very deep this season. And Kevin Vande Streek. Kelvin's always in the mix at the top of the MIAA, which will be Hope again. It will be Alma, despite losses for both teams of talented players. The MIAA will be fun to watch as well. So keep an eye on all of that. It is going to be another exciting season. Couple of housekeeping notes. Speaking of the Northeast, we mentioned Wheaton of Massachusetts earlier. I bring them up because Melissa Hodgson, who's a friend of the show, has a great event going on. I'm going to show you a screenshot of the card they're handing out. Little Angels of Warren Powers Memorial Fund. Cheryl Warren Powers was a former player for Wheaton. She was 39 and unfortunately passed 4 days after giving birth to those two cuties, Jordan and Craig. She was the first basketball player actually at Bishop Freehan High School, and then was a standout softball athlete and played at Wheaton College, where she played both sports. She actually coached at the local high school level as well. She, anyway, passed. And so they do this every year. And forgive me, I got to find this link because Melissa shared an awesome link with me. You're going to see it pop up here, so forgive me as I scroll in here. I want to call this up because the kids, this is last year's video. Forgive us just a few seconds and you're going to see the kids. The kids are great. They're pretty awesome. Very awesome kids. So they're going to have their game coming up. Their opening game is always a fundraiser. And they will do so again. We're going to watch this video because these two are just too adorable. Actually, they're a little bit older, a year older now. But these two twins will be there. They'll get really friends. They'll get to see involved. Everything is great. It's a fundraiser, and I can't. We always love to point out these types of things, and we certainly hope you will maybe recognize this squad. Maybe go to their game if you're in the Northeast, so you can donate to the memorial fund that helps these two kids out. They deserve it, that is for sure. And so we hope you'll take advantage of that. Again, donation card. This is all for a good cause, as it were. As we'll get back to some highlights, so we'll click out of that. But again, it's a wonderful opportunity to help two kids out whose mother passed and is obviously near and dear to the Wheaton family. So check them out. Go to the game if you can there in Wheaton College in Massachusetts, and enjoy some good Division III basketball for starters. But more importantly, give back to a family. By the way, that opening game, the Memorial Tip-Off Tournament, will be against New Jersey City on Friday. Then there's a TBA because there's a couple other games. There was another game taking place played on Saturday. Friday's games at 5:30. It's a whole weekend, obviously, is the Memorial Tournament, so that helps that fund. And then we mentioned we'll travel to Tufts on the 22nd. I'm sure we'll have Melissa on the show somewhere down the road, but check it out. It's a worthy cause and certainly deserves some recognition. Another bit of housekeeping this year. We are going to be debuting some advertising opportunities for any college or conference out there. We were hoping to get more of the word out prior to this, but we haven't had the opportunity, but we will do so down the road. If anybody's interested in advertising on the show, you see how much we run, and you saw some of the NCAA PSAs and D3 Hoops type stuff. The NABC has some ads on our air. If you're interested, get in touch with me. We will get in touch with others. Just a little bit of a twist in our fundraising efforts for the future. Again, we will be on the air Sundays and Thursdays, 7 o'clock Eastern time for the most part. Again, we'll be on this Thursday, and next Sunday we will not be on the air, as we will be bringing the coaches' interviews from Hoopsville weekend. The Hoopsville Classic. We will talk more about the Hoopsville Classic on Thursday, but if you have a chance to go to Stevenson University and watch some great games on Friday and Saturday, 2, 4, 6, and 8 o'clock Eastern time, I certainly encourage you to do so. If not, we will be broadcasting those games, as always, in conjunction with Stevenson University. I want to thank them in advance for their assistance with that. And then moving forward, we'll be back on the air shortly after Thanksgiving and on the air quite a bit throughout that month of December. Just stay with our calendar, which we will update on our website as well, et cetera, et cetera. For the most part, on Sundays, we will try and cover the usual suspects, though in the first few months it's a little harder. But Northeast, Atlantic, South, and Central regions. And then on Thursday nights, we'll primarily try and cover the East, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, and West, with a little bit of South as well, but we will mix and match that a little bit in the first couple of weeks. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for tuning in for the season debut. We will get to talk to some of the newer coaches and talk to some regional coaches or regional reporters in the coming weeks. If you got questions for us, have guest ideas, whatever the case may be, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. The season starts on the 15th. Look for d3hoops.com for some brand new material. I know I will be putting on my top 25 blog. I know it's a little late. Sorry, been a pretty busy and crossover season here with football, soccer, and basketball. But I'll put my preseason ballot on there. But I'm not going to go through all the teams. All I'll basically do is give you my ballot and give you some of my thoughts of the upcoming season, teams to watch and such not. That will come out this week as well. Don't forget, Tuesday is the official start to the season. We have games that are going to be starting at midnight, Monday into Tuesday night. So check those out as well. Of course, d3hoops.com, your source for everything Division III basketball related. And we hope you'll be a friend. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. If you got, we'll be back on the air Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern. Too early to say who our exact guests are, but you know us. We always come up with some good ones, and you can always follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to find out. Thanks to all our guests, Kevin Vande Streek from Calvin College, Bobbi Morgan from Haverford College, John Tower from St. Thomas, Dave Hixon from Amherst, Jeff Hans from Thomas More, and Carla Berube from Tufts, and also thanks to their sports information staffs for their assistance as well. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We got off and running. I'm sure we missed some of the key stories that we haven't had time to cover, but we'll cover them in the next couple of shows as well. We have plenty to talk about in Division III and plenty of shows to do it. We hope you will make Hoopsville a part of your Division III season throughout the season. Even if you can't watch us live, don't forget about the archives and the podcasts as well. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you back here Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. For everybody who made this show possible, thank you. And once again, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Good night, everybody. And thanks to the NABC and WBCA for their support.